guys, James here, how you doing? So this is going to be a video for both HeyRuka and Skeptical Heretic regarding misinformation, human evolution, ethics and rights. Now I do actually have some disagreements with both of you on this topic. Excuse the expression, you both seem to have a somewhat black and white view on the matter. I will be addressing Ruka first, however, because that's where my strongest disagreements lie. So first off, Ruka, I don't think you're a bad person, but I do think that you are extremely misinformed on this subject, and you found some very, very biased information sources. Now, first off, you're making claims which go against the views of the vast majority of educated people, so you are the one who has to provide evidence to support your claims, especially since your claim is a positive claim that white people are biologically more intelligent than black people. Now, I'm sorry, but saying that I'm not your personal reference library is not a valid argument. Saying go Google it is not a valid argument. Many of us have already looked at these claims before and refuted them. So what you're saying is no better than a creationist saying we have evidence for a young Earth, so go Google it. Race can be a very sensitive issue, especially when you're talking about differences between abilities of the races. So before you turn on your webcam, I strongly suggest that you know exactly what you're talking about, and you have the evidence there to back up your claims. Now, the thing is, we do not have a very good history when it comes to race and IQ and conducting these tests fairly. It's virtually impossible to isolate culture from the equation, and social expectations, and things such as poverty, which disproportionately affects members of the African population, due to our history of slaves and other influences. There may well be other factors which influence the results, such as priming, which could be intentional or unintentional. I suggest you look at a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. It covers the topic of priming quite well. But basically, if someone's told positive words about themselves, or they're given signs which indicate positivity, then they'll perform a lot better than someone who's given negative priming. For example, black people who are primed with information about Nelson Mandela perform far better than when they're not, and far better than when they're given information about black gangs and things like that when they do IQ tests. There could also be unintentional priming there, such as if all of the scientists around at the time were white, and then you've got a room full of black people taking a test, that could certainly influence how well they perform. They may well perform considerably better if the scientists there are black, due to them being encouraged and primed with the idea of black people being intelligent. When you go into older tests regarding race and IQ, things get way worse. For example, there's a study done during World War I which concluded that 80% of Jewish, Hungarian, Polish, Italian and Russian immigrants were feeble-minded or mentally defective. The thing is, English was not the first language for the vast majority of the people taking the test, which of course was in English. And the test really reflected people's racist views at the time, and we thought that traits such as mental ability and musical ability were due to some very, very simple Mendelian genetics, which we know now to be completely false. And of course we were decades away from even discovering the structure of DNA. Also, the supposed IQ gap is constantly closing, which really does suggest that the reasons for the supposed difference is due to cultural reasons and not biology. In fact, the difference seems to be so small that it's undetectable, and potentially I suppose it could go either way. And no, variation among individuals is orders of magnitude more than the differences between racial groups. Probably due to the fact that human society, and hence our evolution, encourages and depends on people having different strengths and weaknesses to perform different roles in society. Now, your claim that males and females are more similar than people, the differences between races, is frankly absolutely absurd. I suppose technically, yes, we're closely related because, obviously I share the same parents as my sister, but on the genetic level, it's completely different. The Y chromosome has 60 million base pairs of DNA. That's a whole 2% of my genome. You are more closely related to a female, well, not more closely related, you are genetically more similar to a female bonobo than you are to me. When you go on to talk about us not interbreeding and segregating ourselves, I really do have to wonder where you're getting your information from, because all of the people that I've seen who seem to be promoting this idea seem to be getting their ideas directly from the Nazis. People such as members of the creativity movement, for example, and I'll leave a link down to my first video to them down below. The thing is, at the time of the Nazis, we simply didn't understand the importance of variation in the gene pool. So even if you are right that there's large differences between the races, that's more reason for us to interbreed and work together. As I said before, we need people with different strengths and weaknesses. That is one of the best ways to help improve society. And, as I said before, the difference between individuals is far larger than the difference between different racial groups. The mixing of the gene pool is absolutely vital for our evolution and genetic fitness, and you would understand this if you had spent any time studying evolution whatsoever. Next then, on to Skeptical Heretic. So when you say that race is just skin colour, I'm sorry, but I have to quite strongly disagree with you there. For a start, there's white people who are as dark as some Asians, and there's some Asians who are as dark as some Africans. Secondly, albinos. I can tell the difference between an African and a Caucasian albino nearly every time. An albino born to black parents is still black, and an albino born to white parents is still white. And genetics would most certainly back this up. I don't believe for 1 second that one race or one ethnicity is superior to any other, and I'm definitely not going to make any specific claims as to what the differences are, except for those which have been demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt to be true. All I'm saying is that race is more than just a social construct, and that there's allele frequency differences, which demonstrate that self-reported ethnicity matches genetic sequencing with a remarkable level of accuracy, and that we can create phylogenetic trees which demonstrate the divergence between ethnic groups. There's 2 big studies I know which back this up, and I'll leave links down below in the description box to them. One of them was done in 2004, which looked at 326 genetic markers and 4 ethnic groups, and found only a 0.14% margin of error. There was another later test done in 2010, which took 650,000 genetic markers and 51 ethnic groups, based on self-reported group. When they reduced this down and looked at it at especially informative markers, they reduced it to 650 markers and still remained very close to 100% accuracy. 51 different groups there, and they still managed to get very good very good results. So, clearly there are some genetic differences between ethnic groups, and I don't see why admitting this is a problem. I don't think that it does justify any form of discrimination. I think that if you deny this, or deny the possibility that this is the case, that constitutes nothing more than evolution denialism amongst humans, and is potentially quite damaging to science and progress. I do see this as quite a common problem amongst otherwise completely rational people, that either evolution has stopped among humans, or there's some sort of cognitive dissonance there when it comes to people's views on race and biological sex. Now, one of the biggest issues for me when it comes to this is people's views on eugenics. People seem to think that the idea of improving human genetics is objectively bad, which I find absurd. I'm sorry to go off topic a little bit here, but there's been cave fish which have gone completely blind in as little as 10,000 years due to the lack of a single selected pressure. Modern pharmaceuticals and modern surgery have reduced thousands of genetic pressures. So I think that our genetic fitness will absolutely plummet unless we actually seriously address this. Within our lifetimes, I think we'll have the technology to be able to sequence sperm and eggs and select against the objectively dangerous genetic disorders, and do so ethically. Yet even bringing this up leads to people just strawmanning my position and throwing out Nazi comparisons. And when I talk about the differences between genders, I get strawmanned as well. There are some pretty big structural differences between male and female brains. This is a fact. Links down below. There's people out there, especially amongst certain feminists, who seem to think that mentally men and women are exactly the same. And I think that this is just nonsense. There's on an average that men have their strengths and men have their weaknesses, and so do women. Does that mean we should exclude men from doing a particular job? Does that mean we should exclude women from doing a particular job? No, it doesn't. There's always going to be men which are better at dealing with emotional problems than women, and there's always going to be women who are stronger than the vast majority of men. So to discriminate is just absolutely pointless. And when it comes to race, I think it's possible that there may be other similar things. For example, suppose we find a gene variant which is particularly common amongst Asians, which say leads to increased size of mini-colons in the prefrontal cortex, which makes them on average better at maths. Suppose we find a gene variant which is common among Kenyans, which makes them very good at long distance running. Supposing we find an allele frequency in which is particularly common in Nigeria, which makes them very good sprinters. Does that mean we should discriminate against against other groups of people? Does that mean that we shouldn't let white people become mathematicians? Should that mean that we shouldn't let Asian people become runners? No, it doesn't, because there's always going to be white people who are far better at maths than the majority of Asian people. There's always going to be Asian people who are crap at maths. There's always going to be Asians who are very good runners. There's always going to be black people who are going to be crap runners. So to discriminate would be absolutely pointless, even if we did discover such strong differences. It's all about equal opportunity, not equal outcome. As long as people are all given the same opportunities as one another, then we can't really complain. And forcing equality, trying to force it so there's exactly 50% of women doing every type of job and 50% of men doing every type of job, is quite frankly absurd. So skeptical heretic, yes, humans certainly have interbred between different groups, which has slowed down racial diversity or ethnic diversity, but that's not an exclusively human thing. For example, Europeans have at some point interbred with Neanderthals. A full 6% of our genome comes from Neanderthals. It's not an exclusively human thing. Subspecies, even subspecies will interbreed with each other. I'm sure at some point in the 1 or 2 million years which separated bonobos from chimpanzees, chimpanzees or bonobos will have crossed the Congo River and will have interbred at some point. It's not although there is a divergence, that is not set in stone. Yes, it happens a lot more in humans, but we still do see we still do see quite strong allele frequency differences. Now, there's two reasons which could cause these allele frequency differences. The two main reasons is founder theory and natural selection. So founder theory is where you get a gene variant which would otherwise be extremely rare, becoming quite common in a population due to it being present in an initial bottleneck. We see this in the Amish community, amongst Church of Latter-day Saints, among certain Jewish groups, to name just a few. I'll leave a link down to that below. But more importantly, I think natural selection has played quite a strong role. Not to do with brain function or anything like that. Anything which increases human intelligence or human mental ability in any way will very quickly reach fixation amongst all human groups. For example, FOXP2 gene in the 6 million years that we've diverged from chimpanzees has accumulated 2 mutations. But it only accumulated 1 mutation between chimps and virtually every other mammal. The human version of the FOXP2 gene is present in every single human being on the planet. There's also another gene which I can't remember the name of, which has accumulated 18 mutations between the split from us and chimpanzees. Yet it remained identical between chickens and chimps. That's 1 mutation every 300,000 years, and it's reached 100% fixation. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be many, if any, which affect any form of mental ability, which have frequency differences between groups. But there are going to be geological factors which will affect natural selection. So yeah, there's 3 of them which I can think of, which we do have very strong evidence for. Obviously skin colour, and also dietary and chemical tolerance, and disease tolerance as well. For dietary things, lactose tolerance is extremely high in Europeans. Amongst certain African groups, you've got very high tolerance to malaria. Europeans have a strong tolerance to HIV, and that's, obviously we haven't had as much contact with HIV as Africans, but we have had other diseases in the past which have affected the same type of cell and killed millions of people before, such as I think smallpox is one of them, and that explains why we have such a high frequency of tolerance to it. The reason I think that's actually important to address this is that the human genome is an absolute treasure chest of information. It can tell us information about human migration patterns. It can tell us about particular natural disaster, particular pandemics we've been exposed to in the past. So, ignoring these differences, pretending that these differences don't exist, is just downright, unscientific and unhelpful. And, again, I don't think addressing the fact that there are differences there which are more than just physical in any way justifies any form of discrimination. So, thanks for watching then, guys. Comment, rate, subscribe, and really quite appreciate video responses on this subject. And I'll see you soon. Bye.